These Ipswich Town players are defying the odds.
Hello and welcome back to TWTV, where you join me, Jim Cooper, outside one of the world's finest football grounds, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, for another video verdict. And at last, we have a video verdict of joy and positivity. And I'm joined by TWTD staff writers Kallum, Brisset and Phil Ham. Chaps, glory.
At last! I know it's been a long road, hasn't it? And I know it does look like we're standing outside a shopping centre rather than a football ground, but that is the nature of modern football grounds.
It really does look like a shopping centre. You can't see any elements of a thing.
It's more impressive on the inside than it is on the outside. I think that's clear. And yes.
And indeed, well, Kallum, I mean, people don't realise this, but every week we've been doing TWTV. We've asked Kallum to calculate when was the last time we last won in the Premier League, and it's been going up incrementally by 7 days and 14 days. Yeah. How long is it since we last won in the Premier League?
8,236 days since our last Premier League win, which is longer than I've been alive as well.
Well, that really brings, it shows how old me and Phil are, but it really brings into focus. Because basically we've beaten the mighty Spurs with players like Son, etc. 2-1 away from home in a really cracking game. And when did we last win the Premier League, Phil? When was our last win? Let's labour this point, but I think it's interesting.
Well, it was 2 games from the end of the 2001-2002 season. Darren Bent's first Premier League goal saw us beat Middlesbrough in a midweek game at Portman Road. Unfortunately, we then lost to. We had Manchester United and Chelsea, I think. I can't remember. We had quite a hard run in anyway, and we didn't win. And of course and Liverpool. Sorry, Liverpool was the final game. Chelsea was before Middlesbrough, and yes, that saw us relegated. But earlier in that season, we'd come here. Sort of here, because it was where the old ground was. And at that point, we'd gone 15 Premier League games without a win. Today, we were 10 Premier League games this season, and 2 on top of that last time we were in the Premier League. And last time we won 2-1, and this time we won 2-1.
And we've done it. We've gotten the monkey off our back.
Indeed, and deservedly. And it was a terrific performance, really, I think. And we've been last 2 games. We really have been knocking on the door, haven't we? In no uncertain terms. And today, I think getting a 2-0 lead. Kallum pointed out to me that it's the first time we've been ahead at half time this season. I think perhaps lessons have been learnt from Brentford and to perhaps a lesser extent Leicester, because I think there were other factors at play in the Leicester game. And I think the way that we played the second half, I thought was but really the way the first half, I thought I think we'll probably come to it. I think kind of talk about the tweak to the team, really, which is perhaps a significant thing.
We'll follow up this segment. You can see we're very excited. We'll be speaking to Nick Ames from The Guardian to get a sort of national paper view of the game, and he really picks out some of those changes, Phil. You started to allude there in how we set up. But Kallum, could you sort of take us through your overview of the game and some of the key moments, please?
Key moments? Well, the 2 goals in the first half really set us on our way, didn't they? Sammy Schmodik's, it was some goal, don't you think, with the overhead kick?
Superb, yes.
Echoing Finidi George last time we were here, 22 years ago.
It's all history repeating itself.
It is.
And then shortly before half time, the second goal, Liam Delap slightly fortuitously from a couple of deflections off goalkeeper and centre half on the cutback to land to him basically on the line to slam it home. But from that moment, that was on 43 minutes. I think getting to half time at 2-0, I think was so big. And I thought that was probably a key period of the game, if not a key moment. Then we talk about the second half. Spurs were right up for it, from the start of the second half. They score after a few minutes, and a VAR call goes our way this time.
At last.
For a handball.
It was funny how the away end turned from being... Everyone was talking before the game about VAR and how terrible it is, and then we were the biggest fans of it because it happened. Elaborate on that a bit more.
Yeah, it was Solanke who... I think it was from a corner or a set piece.
Yeah, it was corner,
flicked on, and he cannoned it in off of his own arm. Correct decision, really, to disallow it, and that kind of bought us a bit more time in the second half. They did eventually score 20-ish minutes to go, but from then it never felt like the goal was under siege. It felt like, particularly for the last 10-15 minutes, that not that we'd controlled the game, but we got it to a pace that we could manage, where it was less frantic, and in the end we did manage to see it through. I thought Amari Hutchinson in those stages was
outstanding.
It was
yeah.
What was very interesting, I think, was that after they scored, you could hear the atmosphere for the first time, because when it goes here, it's loud. But we actually managed the game really well. We didn't allow the atmosphere to build. We didn't allow the momentum. We managed the game really well. Just before we get a bit more views from Phil, Kallum, could you just take us through the lineup, what changed specifically? And then we'll start to pick out some performers. You've already mentioned Hutchinson there.
So 2 changes, one probably more significant than the other. Jens Kajust, I think. We spoke to him after the game and clarified that, so I should get that correct. He came in for Calvin Phillips, who was obviously suspended, and I thought, particularly in the first half, I thought he was possibly the player of the half for me in that first period. And Connor Chaplin came out the side for Axel Twanzebe, who was back from his clumsy thumbs incident, shall we say.
For those people who don't follow Ipswich as closely as us, Axel has been one of our key performers through the start of the season. And unfortunately, he had a freak accident where he almost cut his thumb off in his sink on a broken piece of glass. Now, seeing him back today, you realise that maybe we'd have more points than we have now if he'd been fit. And how brilliant was he today?
He was excellent, and him coming in for Chaplin meant it was a shift in the system. It was almost most of the game more of a back 3/5, with Axel as one of the central 3, Ben Johnson as a wing back, and same for Davis, and then you had Schmodix and Hutchinson kind of as a 2 behind Delap. And I thought that system worked really well. Again, had the personnel for it with Axel coming back, as we spoke about. Connor Chaplin can probably feel quite hard done by, because I thought he was excellent last week. But when a system change in terms of a game plan needs to work like that, it was clearly the right call from McKenna to go that way.
Well, let's hand over to Phil to get your which players stood out. Who were the performers for you, or was it across the whole pitch, Phil?
Well, it is across the whole pitch. I think when you get a result like that, you can't really you have to praise everybody, and it was. And the management, of course, because I think it was a tactical victory as much as anything else. And the switch that he made, putting Ben Johnson in that role that Wes Burns normally fills, or Ogbene latterly, it does move it slightly. And because we were always likely to have less of the ball than we perhaps might in other games, or certainly last season, as Kallum says, when we're without the ball, it effectively becomes 3 at the back or 5 at the back, whichever way you want to put it. But it was the same system that he used at Manchester City with Johnson playing on that right side. And early on, of course, we got a goal on the break in that game through Sami Smodic. And again, all game, I think right from the beginning, there was 3 minutes in, I think, Hutchinson dispossessed somebody and created a chance for Smodic, from the corner. From that, O'Shea went very close to scoring with a header, and of course later on Cameron Burgess hit the bar. So it wasn't as if we were, although Spurs had most of the ball and had 1 or 2 chances, probably the best one in that period was in the first half was Brennan Johnson when he stabbed one wide right at the beginning. But when I looked at half time, thinking, well, most of the chances probably we'd kind of were there or thereabouts. You know what I mean? It was fair enough.
Yeah,
I think, really.
I think that's the thing is that people go, two smash and grab goals. It really wasn't. They were two good chances at the start,
and we'd had others. I think that's the thing.
And I think again, it quietened their crowd down a little bit, and it made them a little bit more nervous. If we just encamped back, I think we'd have just had ways of action. And coming back to Johnson and Axel, they were like doubling up on Son, and they really were solid on that side. And I think that was a really key factor in the game. Would you say?
Yeah, and also, of course, and people have said this before, that they're surprised that clubs haven't made more of the space behind Leif Davis, which Liverpool made a lot of in that first game. But when you have Johnson playing that role, Tuanzebe moves across, then O'Shea moves across, and then Burgess moves across. So it sort of tightens everything there. Second half, we're always going to, as Kallum says, it was very important to get to half time, as we didn't against Brentford, without conceding, and it gave us something to build on, and we actually started the second half reasonably well, I think. And again, I think you're right about the disallowed goal. It sort of knocked the wind out of their sails a little bit, because they thought they'd got there and they hadn't. And when it was a clear handball, I don't think. I think the only reason we're in any doubt is that VAR decisions haven't gone in our favour generally. But then yes, I think O'Shea and Burgess and everyone at the back really was fantastic, and Muric I think had his most solid game for us.
Firstly, it's interesting. We're almost just going around the team saying that brilliant tackles there, whatever. And you're right, Muric. Around me, I heard a few grumbles in the away end at the start of the game, but actually, he was coming out for the ball really well, wasn't he? And then the sort of match, a win-saving save at the end, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely. But I think really, for me, the outstanding performance was Hutchinson in the second half. Because when we were under the cosh a bit, Hutchinson would bring the ball out, and it wasn't necessarily being able to create an opportunity for us, but he did do that on one or two occasions. But it was just winning a free kick here, just getting the ball up the pitch, and a bit of respite for the defence. And I think that, and also again, it's sort of the opposition's momentum is hit by that. And then I think whether this was just the fact that Tottenham obviously had a very tough game against Aston Villa last week, and then we're in Turkey and had a tough game against Galatasaray on Thursday. I think they. And I know they changed a number of players, but there were still a number of those players that played both games, and I think they ran out of steam.
I was worrying. I thought Porro looked like he was tiring. That was an example. Back to you, Kallum. Kallum, I'll put you on the spot. Who would be even though we've just said everyone was great, who would be your man of the match? Brilliant.
I changed my answer to this mid-game, not mid-game, kind of on the final whistle. I eventually settled on Amari Hutchinson, just because I thought when the crucial stages of the game at 2-1, when we were under a lot of pressure and we didn't have a lot of the ball, when we did get the ball, he was always kind of the man up there, like Phil says, giving us a bit of respite, and it felt like he played like a man twice his size. It felt like he held the ball up.
He won the ball in the air at one point.
And he was getting clattered in there. I mean,
I settled on Amari.
And it was intelligent runs. That was the other thing, wasn't it? I think he was making intelligent runs and then drawing the foul, and then that was a couple of minutes rest.
Same for you. Amari is your man of the match as well. Fantastic. I think I'm with you on that, but I just thought across the pitch there was just tackles going. Morsi was good. I really like Kajusta. I can't say it, but whatever it is, I thought I
had him until I changed to Amari.
He breaks the lines, to give that football term. He really does. He's got a bit more pace, but I love it. And I thought Johnson was good today. I was a bit unsure of him at the start of the season, but he was doing a great job out there, and I said teaming up really well. So okay, let's pick out a couple of any other key observations from you, Kallum, on the overall game, would you say? And I'm
just ecstatic to win, to be honest.
Your first Premier League.
Feels like I've been a bit level-headed. Maybe it's because the game was finished a couple of hours ago. It
was one. And in fact, I'll pick out something for you, Kallum. I think you sort of were concerned after the game last week, the Leicester draw, that it might be a season-defining moment, because I think it
possibly.
I think we needed to win that, and we were good enough to win it.
Could this be a season-defining
do you think?
moment?
For me, it feels like it.
Could be. It could be. If we do manage to stay up this season, we'll look back and go, that win at Spurs how crucial was that to set us going? A win that we didn't see coming. Let's be
we
honest.
didn't see it coming.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we jokingly thought we might go on, Phil.
No, I think that's a very good point, and I feel that there's a kind of palpable kind of lifting of a weight. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
and not
yes.
just amongst the supporters, but the way that Kieran McKenna and his staff celebrated at the final whistle on the touchline, and I think just generally that kind of. We've now got 2 weeks. If we'd gone 2 weeks having not won in 11, and been in the bottom 3, then that's quite deflating, I think. And not just the players will have felt like that. I know that there's a lot of this kind of positive about performances, and it's right to be positive about performances, but there's no substitute for winning football matches.
Absolutely.
in terms of kind of confidence and just belief and it's they're like anyone else going to work every day. If you go to work every day and you're successful, you feel better about it than when you're not.
And it builds a culture of success and belief.
Exactly.
And I've got to say, being in the away end, which was just ridiculous today, in a good way, that moment when the players came across, you probably saw from the press box, you could see the lift it was giving the fans and the players back. It was, and McKenna was fired up. He was really. I mean, obviously he has a history at this place. He was really fired up. I think he knew how much important it was, and they were pushing Muric forward as players to sort of say, "Well done."
Yeah.
These are the kind of thing that will build his confidence. So I think you're right. It's a pivotal moment, Kallum. I think.
100%.
Absolutely. So let's go on to one of our favourite sections, and it is going to be great to do this one this week. We're going to go to the TWTD forum and Homer's 3-word summaries. And guys, get yours. Think about what yours are going to be. But let's go through these. So I love VAR. Or I love VAR. That's great.
This week.
We set it up. There were 2 VAR incidents. They went our way.
Mark Ashton obviously did very well in his meeting this week.
It's obviously been a successful
well
session.
Done, Mark.
Yeah, well done, Mark. Liam Delap Olay. And now, in the bars at half time, we've got a bit of video of this before you've ever seen it already. It was bonkers, and that's what everyone was singing, banging the shopping mall type hoardings and stuff like that. It was great. Okay, let's keep going. 8 farking minutes. It's not swearing there. It's a 8 because it's what it felt like. How did you feel, guys, when that minute? Because I knew it was actually going to end up being 10 or something.
You thought it was going to be 7, and it was 8.
Well, I hated it. To be honest, it was the longest 8 minutes since Leicester last week.
It wasn't it? It was. You thought it was coming, and then monkey off back. We've talked about that. It's a massive. If we'd have gone in, and of course, guys, Wolves won yesterday, and I think
this weekend's about us.
And I think
so.
If we'd have had the monkey still on us going into the national break,
and we would have been the one team in the 92 that hadn't won as well, which is
took our chances. Absolutely.
Fair.
Created more than but we took them. Season starts here, which I like. I feel like there's a momentum there. I thought, although having said that, we've still got 5 draws. We've done well.
Well, we've got results in more matches than we haven't now, haven't we? I think it's 11 matches and I was at the at Portman Road on Thursday night for the community foundation dinner, and that's what McKenna was talking about, is the fact that one of their goals was to be competitive in every game. And frankly, bar 2 we have been, and today we were super competitive because we won, and then the last one we're staying up. I didn't feel like that after the Leicester game and last week on the show. No, I think this week has probably been the only week where we've kind of, as generally throughout the support, there's been a bit of a question mark. You're sort of thinking, are we going to do it? And then so we needed this result today, and I think Mike was sort of up and running. Here we go, something like that.
Up and running.
I think that's sort of the feeling. I think.
What a relief!
What a relief!
That was almost the exact words of Sammy Schmodix after the game. Just relief to get that first win.
And anything else from the presser as we close out? What was said in the press conferences? What are the main messages building on that one?
Well, Kieran was obviously delighted, and I think a significant milestone. I think he felt the first Premier League win, not just in the season, but overall in the club's journey, as he put it. And Ed Sheeran had been in the dressing room afterwards to celebrate with the team, congratulate them. He just sort of popped his head in, I think.
His pink design shirt was on show.
We'll be seeing that again, I think, won't we?
Pretty in pink, if you want another 3 words.
Pretty in pink. That's what we'll put that on the title card.
Yes, I think, and now it kind of, we go into another big game against his other former team, Manchester
Yeah.
United, with more confidence perhaps
and
we
I
would
think,
have otherwise.
I think the atmosphere at the start of Portman Road is going to be rocking with this in our memories and going into that game where I
Yeah.
feel we start. So,
Yeah.
right, just very quickly to finish. So Survival League, looking around, which feels we're in a better place in the Survival League. Wolves, they took the monkey off their back and beat Saints 2-0 at home. Some interesting VAR in that one. Palace are definitely struggling. I thought they were maybe going to be bouncing back a little bit. There's going to be a lot of pressure on their manager now. They lost 2-0 at home to Fulham, and then Man U have beaten Leicester 3-0 today. So we end by saying not only have we finally won after 11th game, but we're outside of the relegation zone as well, which is just a brilliant place to be after 11 games. So that's it. Thanks so much, guys, and it's great to get smiles back on our faces
Yes.
again and just experience an amazing stadium, an amazing away end, and an amazing performance. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Okay, welcome back to TWTV for another segment looking back on the glorious first win of the season at the magnificent Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And I'm joined by Nick Ames from The Guardian. What's your role at The Guardian, please?
My role is European sport correspondent, but when there's a bit of town involved, obviously cannot resist to dip my toe in, and today was a particularly enjoyable match report to write, as you can imagine.
And that's right, Nick, because you're a massive town fan as well, actually. So let's get into it. Actually, before we start talking about the game, actually, let's talk a little bit about, obviously you're working in the national press. What's been of your peer journalists, and what's the general feeling towards Ipswich's season so far in the national media?
Yeah, I think, and quite encouragingly from a town perspective, there has been an acknowledgement that they played really well, but haven't had that win. And I think the longer a team goes on winless, as we all know, the external perception is, they're probably not going to have enough to get over the line. But I think there has been. I was talking to a few guys before the game today, and they were all coming up to me, knowing I'm a town fan, saying, "Oh, they've played very well in most of the games, haven't they?" So I think the fact that good work has been happening, and that the lucky breaks haven't always been there, and that there is clear step-by-step improvement. At the outset of this game, people were talking about it, and they weren't. I see a lot of complaints on like certain groups and message boards about how some broadcast programs are framing us and stuff like that, and I get it.
Yeah.
But I certainly think in the newspaper media there is that acknowledgement.
That's quite positive, isn't it? It gives us some encouragement that they're seeing signs that
Absolutely.
we've got maybe the foundations for a good season. Okay, so let's move on to what a glory. I mean, how pleased are we? I mean, what a fantastic, dogged performance, and what an important result. For you, you obviously watch a lot of football. What do you think McKenna changed today? What did you see in the game that allowed us to A, score, and B, hold out so well?
I think he was very, very clever, especially in the first half. You always feel a bit worried when you see a town team sheet and he's gone a bit more defensive for whatever reason. This time it was obviously Johnson and Twanzebe both in, and we're so used to the identity of this team being as one that goes for it and attacks and commits men forward. This time I think he was happy to sit in, he was happy to concede ground. We have seen that approach before, by the way, at places like City and Brighton, I think.
Yeah.
But when Town did attack, they attacked with meaning and with thrust, and they committed numbers forward, and it was very, very sharp. The interplays were good. Kajus, who we can maybe talk about, was fantastic in breaking the lines, as for the first goal, and I felt there was a very good balance between knowing when, at a place like Spurs, who are going to throw everything at you, you're going to sit in and do some mucky work, weather the storm, but also, no, when we can, we're going to ask a question of you. And it has to be said that before the opening goal, Town hit the bar, forced the keeper into a save, a couple of scrambly moments. It wasn't like it was off the cards. Yeah,
it's a couple of great points to make in there. Firstly, I do think we did have those chances earlier, and I thought we were going to rue those chances. But you're right, the decision making was really good, wasn't it? When to sit deep, when to break, and I thought when we broke, it was they were doing the right thing. And then talk about the game management at the end. It seemed to be a different level to what we've seen so far, maybe.
It was really encouraging because, as we've said, that first half was, as Kieran put it in the press conference, spot on, I think, in terms of balance between attack and defence. Second half, we knew that Town were going to have to dig in and fight for their lives at times. When Bentancur scored the header, I think a lot of people thought, "Whoa, here we go again, I'd take a point now." I certainly was. And there was that couple of minutes after when Spurs flickered a bit and Werner had a shot tipped over, I think, by Muric. But what I think Town did very well, more directly to your question, after that, was I think they stepped up the pitch a bit. I think they stepped 10 or 15 yards further up, started to box Spurs in a bit, not make it as easy for them to play, held the ball up, won some quite good fouls down in the corners. Didn't pose a massive attacking threat themselves, but managed to keep them at arm's length. And when you look back at that entire last, it was probably about 28 minutes or so, there was only the one chance at the end when Solanke, I think that was Muric, what he's really good at there in those one-on-one situations. He does stand very firm.
Yes.
And I know Muric has been a bit of a Marmite figure to some, but he got a point at the end there.
Absolutely. And I know you can hear a few moans in the away end today about Muric, but I thought he was collecting the ball, he was coming for crosses really well, and it was that leg down to make the save was brilliant.
So
just to pick out a couple of points from you there, it was really notable, wasn't it? When they were going upfield in that last period of the game, there were times where they could have maybe gone into an attack mode but would have lost the ball, but they didn't. They took it out to the corners or just held it up really well. I
think that's a really good point. They didn't commit so many men forward and go for stuff that they were then exposed at the other end by a team that has got players like Son and Werner who can rip you like that. And nor did we see the sucking back and sitting too deep, which has got us picked up in various divisions on many occasions. So I felt the defensive balance in the end there was good, and that'll be such an important moment psychologically, because let's face it, this team has struggled to hold on to leads. It's been a theme of the season so far, and to do it here in that fashion and in a way that was convincing is massive.
And I think, if we had conceded the second goal, I think it would, or given up the lead, it would have been a real body blow. And I think, as you said, the confidence they're going to get for it, know they can see it out. And as you mentioned, that after their goal, the game management was so good. We didn't allow their home end to really build up, did we? And that was that period where I thought if they'd had ways of attack, I think the atmosphere would have built and we'd have had a problem. And let's pick onto that. So how did you find the atmosphere from the press box? Because I was in the away end and it was just lunacy. In fact, it was lunacy in the bars at half time as well. How did you find the atmosphere today, and what do you make of the stadium?
I felt like I was in a straitjacket sat in there, sort of like banging my desk a bit when we scored, but the town fans were fantastic. The away support just gets better and better and better. Didn't hear much from the home fans until in that stadium, as we were discussing before, the acoustics are quite impressive, quite modern. When that home crowd is up, and I've been here many times, they are really up. And they were for that little period midway through the second half, and you could feel the mood change and the atmosphere lift very briefly. But for 80% of that game, it was the town fans completely dominant, and the limbs, as people like to call it now, at full time. Believe me, that was more spectacular than when we scored. It was like we just got promoted. You could feel, even from 80 yards across the pitch where I was, you could feel the release in tension and everything, and the beam on everyone's faces. It was a joyous sight. I hope. I didn't have a chance to take a video, but I hope someone did, because I think people would like to see themselves.
I think there'll be loads of video online. But you're right. It was a moment, and it's funny. Just as you said, it was almost like the final whistle was celebrated more than the goals. And I think just to finish that moment when McKenna came over and Muric got, we talked about Muric earlier. He got praise from the crowd. It's one of those moments where I think can lift a season. It really can be a game changer. And let's close out. What's your thoughts on the remainder of the season? Where do we go from here, Nick?
We have to build on this. We have to be aware that in the very short term, very difficult next game against Man United, which it's a big national occasion with Amorim coming in. Don't be downhearted if that doesn't do too well. Look, we all know that this season is going to be a scuffle and a fight, and it may well go to the death. I don't think there's any escaping that. I don't think there's much chance of finishing comfortably 13th and sailing out the last month or so. It's going to be tough. But what this does, it shows us, but it shows externally too, that Town are a Premier League club, a Premier League team, a team that can get results in the Premier League. And I just think that kind of validation, whether it's to yourself or whether it's to people outside, helps you carry yourself that bit.
And do you think it will teams show us more respect as well? Do you think there's an advantage of them maybe changing their perception about how they'd come out against us? Is that an advantage maybe?
And potentially, I mean, Spurs today. Not that I want to go all into their season now or try and get into their heads, but they've. In many of their, two of their recent home games, especially Villa and West Ham, they've gone behind and then blown away the opponent. You kind of got the impression that they felt they could start slow and then taper up and do it again. And Town didn't let them. So maybe teams won't quite make the mistake
Yeah.
of thinking they can slacken off a bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, these things help, and it's such a positive thing. I mean, my colleague from another paper in
Yeah.
there today, full time, first thing he said, that's the shock result of the Premier League season so far.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
let's hope that going forward, results like that aren't as big a shock.
Yeah, I think there's so many good signs. Well, Nick, really interesting to get a sort of national paper view of the game today and the season so far. And thanks so much for watching TWTV again. It's international break, which we go into a lot happier, Nick, now. It's going to be a different kind of weekend. And we've actually got a special show next weekend. We'll be having a season review of the Premier League promotion 23-24 through the eyes of a graphic designer. So have a look out for that. And thanks again for watching, and please like and subscribe.